as Black nurses, we know that in the communities and where we live, learn, work, die, and play, we have so much influence because the community trusts us. And that's a huge responsibility. No,
Right.
we got to think a little differently. We got to create bigger pies, different pies,
Yes.
because everybody who wants to be a nurse should be able to have a pathway to the profession. And that's not the case.
So, Dr. Fields is a research professor and inaugural associate dean for equity and inclusion in the Ross and Carol Neese College of Nursing at Penn State University. He is also founder and CEO of the SDF Group, LLC, which is a health innovation consulting company. He has over 30 years of experience in the health sector as an educator, researcher, clinician, administrator, consultant, health policy specialist, and entrepreneur and business owner. Dr. Fields is a well known and respected HIV/AIDS prevention research scientist with a significant focus on young men of color. He is an advanced AIDS certified registered nurse and a board certified family nurse practitioner. He worked for over a decade as a primary care provider in a federally qualified health center with historically underserved, disenfranchised population. He is a lifetime member of the National Black Nurses Association and currently serves as the organization's 14th national president. He was the first ever male registered nurse selected for the Robert Wood Johnson's Foundation Health Policy Fellowship Program, in which he served as a policy advisor to the Senator Barbara Mikulski on the Senate Help Committee during the historic healthcare reform debates and passage of the Affordable Care Act. Dr. Fields is a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing, the American Association of Nurse Practitioners, the National Academies of Practice, and the Academy of Diversity Leaders in Nursing. He is absolutely amazing. The rest of the bio will be in the description. I want you to enjoy this episode. Welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I am your host, Coach Charlene, and I am so honored and delighted to have Dr. Sheldon Fields in the house. Welcome, Dr. Fields.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad we finally figured out how to connect.
Yes, I'm so excited. So I actually been watching you for quite some time. I just like literally joined the Black Nurses Association last year. And so I'm a
Yeah.
little behind the ball, but boy, we are doing it. And so that's how I got an opportunity to meet and to see the work that you're doing. And so I was like always desiring for you to be on the podcast. And I
Yeah.
interviewed Carter, Todd, and Aaron, and a few of the other powerful members. And they were like, "You got to get Dr. Sheldon on there." I was like, "I know, I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to do that." So let me tell you a little bit about why I started the podcast. In 2020, with the murder of George Floyd, I was in agony. I was disgusted because normally I don't watch the news, but I just happened to see it this time. And so
Mhm.
I am a woman of prayer. So I did go into prayer. And then I heard these words: "What you do in this moment will determine your destiny and dictate your future." And so I knew that I had to move from anguish and frustration to action and impact. And so the dream of it manifested that day. And then I think 2 years later, it took me 2 years to birth this baby because of, all the self limiting beliefs and stuff like that. So I finally plunged in and did it. And I'm telling you, it was one of the most phenomenal things that I have ever done. And so
Mhm.
that's my why behind, because I think there's moments that got that we're called into to disrupt systems, to transform ourselves, or whatever that may be. And I love unpacking stories. So that's really why I invite all of these beautiful guests to come on. So I'm so honored
Mhm.
to find out who you are. So why don't you just first of all just tell us who you are?
Well, I'm Sheldon Fields, originally born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Actually, born to a Puerto Rican father and African American mother, the youngest of six children. But the first in my immediate family to go off to college. Um, I am a nurse. I know a lot of people don't look at me, and that's not the first thing they see. But I have been a registered professional nurse for 33 years.
Wow.
Um, I know I look younger, but
Yes.
but was very fortunate. My mother's biggest sister, my aunt, was a nurse, and she was such an inspiration. My aunt Lorraine, and that was my why into nursing. I've had a very, great career in nursing. I'm also a family nurse practitioner. I went and I did get my PhD in nursing. I'm an academic, and all the other things that you probably said in the introductory bio. And very proudly now serving as the servant president of the National Black Nurses Association.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, and so much more because I was reading your bio and I was like, oh my God, he is so dynamic. So I'm sure we'll unpack some of the other things. But I wanted to, wow, over 30 years in nursing and you are a Black male. How was
Mhm.
that like 30 years ago?
It was a little lonely, if I'm being
Yes.
honest. I was the first and probably the only black male. Was the only black male in every single one of my nursing programs. Um, you know, I never thought about it that much at the time because you went to nursing school. You know what it's like. You
Yes, I
put
do.
your head down. You do what you got to do. It's a tough major. But I did get looks. I got questioned. About my like, why are you doing this? And men don't become nurses. Black men don't become nurses. Um, but as most people, when they find nursing, it was a calling,
Yes.
and this was truly my calling. I thought about going to medical school. I even tried being a pre-med major. It didn't speak to my heart. It didn't speak to my purpose, but nursing did. I already mentioned my inspiration, who was my aunt, and I just saw the wonderful, good things that she was doing with her life, and I wanted to emulate that. Um, but that, to your point though, 30 years plus later, the percentage of men in nursing has gotten better, but it has
Mm.
not really changed to the point where people still don't think that, oh, men can't be nurses or black men can't be nurses. And I don't know if you saw it, but there's this video going around from the Southern University School of Nursing, or what they call Susan, and it's a newer school of nursing down in Louisiana, and they have this incredibly large number of men, black men, in their nursing program.
Oh,
And I saw the
wow.
video the other day. A couple of people have sent it to me, and I every time I watch it, it warms my heart. I want to talk to them. I want to, I
Yes.
want to tell them, you guys have done, you've chosen so well. Stick with it. The profession needs you, the world needs you. Uh, and quite honestly, it has given me sort of a renewed hope.
Oh, that's wonderful. You're so right, though, because I remember I've been in the profession for about 32 years. And when I first went to nursing school, I mean, it was like hardly just basically any blacks, period. I think it was two of
Mhm,
us out of that big class, and definitely not men at all.
mhm,
So that is it's pretty amazing. Like when I went to wherever I go now with Black Nurses Association, and I see all of you guys, it's like, oh my God, I think we have like the all of the percentage right here in the Bay Area. But I'm just so proud to see you
yeah.
guys. And you're not just doing nursing, you're going so beyond that with all of the certifications and degrees, and the momentum and the passion that I
Mhm.
see in the men is just so inspiring and so amazing. So I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing for the profession. I know you have a lot more to do and a lot more little guys to raise up because we do need that strength in the profession. So totally deeply honored about that. Why don't you tell us, Dr. Sheldon, about a moment? Like I know I heard you say that your aunt, which is really amazing, kind of inspired you to go into nursing. Have you had any of those moments that were a bit sobering? For instance, like when I started nursing school, I was in nursing school and I was cleaning up a patient, and she was a Caucasian woman. And so I'm cleaning her up, getting her ready. She's never seen her family because we transferred her to a different facility. And then she grabs my wrist and she calls me the N word. Now, I'm not even like graduated yet. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so traumatized by
Mm-hmm.
that. But my mom and my dad were awesome. They taught me how to allow words not to affect who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I had to love her beyond that statement, cleaned her up,
Mm-hmm.
everything went well. But it was just sobering for me to actually be in the moment in that situation. So that moment, however, I believe made me who I am today
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't quit. Because the thought
Mm-hmm.
came, like, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this all the time. But
Right.
I hung in there and just kept doing what I'm doing. I believe that now, because I shared the story, it has really helped transform other
Yeah.
people because we shouldn't have to tolerate it, but we do have the ability to go beyond another human being. And so
Yeah.
I've been displaying love in that way because of certain biases and stuff. So, were there any moments for you in your career that was pretty sobering for you?
Yeah, there's unfortunately been a few in wherever I've gone, sort of the various reiterations of my career. So early on, in my very first nursing job, I was a clinical nurse at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City, and I had already risen to be the sort of the the nurse in charge. I was working the night shift, and I came in one night and I was doing my first rounds, and similar to you, um, uh, went to say hello to a patient. It was a Caucasian woman, and she was like, "Oh, when you go out, can you tell the supervisor, to come down?" I said, "Well, I'm the nurse in charge this evening, so that would be me." Of course, when I first entered the room, she thought I was the janitor. She's like, "Oh, are you here to empty the trash?" I'm like, "No." I introduced myself as her nurse, and it was just that I knew she was uncomfortable for some reason, and
Yeah.
I just figured, well, maybe she never had a male nurse, she never had, I don't know, I didn't know what it was. So I was walking down the hall, and one of the nursing assistants was walking up. Her name was Rose. Rose was like, "Oh, have you met our resident?" Blah blah. I said, "What?" She says, "You met our resident racist," because I thought I didn't hear her. I said, "What?" I said, "Really?" She said, "Well, I said, "Well, she's going to have to deal with me because I'm not reassigning anybody else to her." So over the course of of taking care of her, I didn't do anything like I wouldn't do to any other patient. Um, the morning that I knew she was going to be released, I went in to prepare her, take out her ID, that type of thing. And before I left the room, she said, "Hey, can I tell you something?" I said, "Yeah, sure." She said, "I just really want you to know that you're a good nurse."
Oh.
I I said, "Well, thank you." Because sometimes, like owing to your point, I had to just work through it. As nurses, we don't get to choose our patients.
Right.
We never should. It's moral and ethically wrong.
Yes.
And you should care for everybody with the same level of humanity and the same level of compassion uh, that you would do anybody. That's what separates our profession: the empathy, the compassion that we bring to that table, irregardless of how you want to treat me individually. I rose above it.
Yes.
um, and again, fortunately, unfortunately, I still walk into places and spaces where uh, they don't expect someone who is a nurse with as many degrees or certifications and accomplishments that I have to look like me. Whether it's my maleness, whether it's my blackness, I'm almost 6 feet tall. It could be any number of factors. Um, you know, Even in my academic career, when I switched to being an academic, I encountered a colleague that just completely disenfranchised me, and didn't think that I had the ability to teach, and why would I be teaching her students, and regraded an entire exam that I had written and given because students complained. But instead of going to me to correct it, she did it all on her own, and then came and told me about it. Uh, I never felt so disrespected
Yeah.
in my life. I think myself as a reasonable person. We could have talked about it. We could have came to a resolution. But to just think that you had the better solution was just not the right thing to do. Um, so there's been those moments, but I also want to say this, because I truly do love being a nurse. I know, but it does have its challenges.
Yeah.
I'm in a process of writing a book about those challenges. Uh, uh,
Yes.
you
Well,
know,
I think I mean your presence, your authentic presence is so loving that like I mean I don't know you, but like if I would I'd have you as a patient, like that's what I feel.
yeah,
Not without even knowing you. So I think I mean
yeah.
that's pretty amazing actually. Just you can feel the compassion for the nursing profession pouring out, and so it's your brand, it's who you are. And so it's so amazing to be able to see that. So how did Sheldon get like that? Like, how did you do that?
I was getting ready to tell you honestly. I was raised many years by my grandmother, Alberta Chavis. We called her Gaga. Um, my grandmother showed me what the true meaning of unconditional love is.
Mm,
She just It's just what she was, what she did. Uh, you know, she's a woman of her time, so she grew up at a much different time when Black women didn't have opportunities. She grew up in the South, descended from American slaves, um, and worked as a domestic. Had really bad diabetes. And my aunt, again, my aunt who was the nurse, because I was around my grandmother so much, taught me how to care for my grandmother. I
mm.
was given insulin and taking
Oh
care of
wow.
grandma when I was very young. My grandmother was my first patient.
Oh my
In retrospect,
gosh.
she was my first patient. And she just was that example. And she took care of me. She took care of me when even my mother couldn't take care of me. um so I am the product of that type of rearing, and
Yes.
a woman who sacrificed a great deal. um you know she she learned to read later in life, even, and I helped her with that. We would read the Bible and do other things. um she was always my big supporter. At my
Yeah.
undergraduate graduation, I walked out of the arena. I had my degree in my hand, and I gave it to my grandmother
Oh.
because, like a lot of African Americans, first generation college students, you don't
Yes.
do that by yourself.
That's right.
And I would never have been able to accomplish going to school, graduating without her. The birthday cards with the $5 in it. I mean, all of those things that she did.
Yes.
Um, and my degree, that degree, hung in her house until she died,
Wow, that
because it
is
was just
such
it was just as much hers as it was mine.
yeah, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was just so
Yeah.
heartfelt. And we honor her for her legacy that you continue to carry. So that's beautiful. I'm wondering, Dr. Fields, you did a lot of different like certifications and movements and things
Hmm.
like that. Like how did you get to where you are today? Like you were a bedside nurse first, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
how did you continue to shift and elevate and I mean launch where you are today?
I think it was fortunate. I had some great mentors. I did encounter some fabulous people along the way, but it's also the beauty of the nursing profession. People would say, "Well, what do you do?" I was like, "Well, it depends on the day, because one day I'm a teacher, the next day I'm a researcher, the next day I'm an advocate, the next day I'm an entrepreneur. It really all depends. A researcher, I mean, it's just, I knew early on, when I started working at Sloan and I saw what a nurse practitioner did, I was like, oh my God, this is when nurse practitioners was just emerging. Um, so I've been a family nurse practitioner since, oh God, 1995. Uh, um, yeah, so I
Wow.
went all in. And
Yeah.
then in that program, I went back to Binghamton University where I did my undergrad. And in that program, I had a professor. Her name was Terry Grabeau. Really great professor. She said to me, she's like, Sheldon, what are you going to do when you graduate? I was like, I don't know. I'm a graduate. I'm a go get a life, go on vacation, get a car. I don't know. She was like, I really think you should think about getting your PhD. I was like, in what? She was like, in nursing. I was like, no. She was like, yes. I was like, mm. Uh, and more importantly, she uh, encouraged me to apply to the PhD program at the University of Pennsylvania. Ivy League school, the number one and number two school in the country. I was like, absolutely not. They will never take me at that school. She was like, yes, they will. And I applied with her encouragement, her letter of recommendation. I got in.
Yeah.
I was the first Black male ever in the PhD program in nursing at the University of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
I'm its first
Wonderful.
graduate. So it was because of her. But in that program, I also went to UPenn because Dr. Loretta Sweet Jamont, who is a world class, internationally known researcher in HIV prevention, was there. So I went to study with Dr. Jamont and her husband.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and she has been an enormous impact on my research career, and what I was able to do with my research in HIV/AIDS prevention, which is focused on young men of color, uh, throughout my entire career. And became a teacher, but still did other things. Another colleague encouraged me to even think about health policy. um, um, oh, Dr. Randolph Rash. I don't know if you've ever heard about Dr. Randolph
Mhm.
Rash. Dr. Rash is noted to be the first African American male to get a PhD in nursing. Uh, and he
Wow.
became one of my mentors, because again, when you think about what you can do and you look around and no one like you has ever done it, it's like, well,
Right.
how do you become that which you can't see, that which people tell you doesn't exist? But he did, and he became one of my mentors, and he still is one of my mentors. Um, so the long short of the answer to your question is, you got to find some really good mentors. You got to find some people who believe in you, who will encourage you. But it does also take a lot of work, and you also have to have a sense of what you want to do, no matter what the universe tells you.
Yeah.
um, you got to have some conviction about it. I knew I wanted to do research in HIV, because at the time it was, and it still is, a huge issue within the Black
Right.
community. Um, then I wanted to do something in health policy because I didn't know enough about health policy and how that system worked. So I became the first Black male nurse, actually the first male nurse of any color, who was a nurse, to be a Robert Wood Johnson Health Policy Fellow.
Wow.
And I did that during President Obama's first term in office. I had a first row seat to the passage of healthcare reform, working for a major senator from Maryland at the time. Her name was Barbara Mikulski.
Hmm.
Um, and now the work that I do as an associate dean for equity and inclusion here at Penn State, my mission is very clear, that I want to do everything that I can to make the nursing profession more equitable, that it represents the population that we serve. Because while nursing is a lot of things, it is neither gender nor racially, ethnically diverse. And it's problematic.
Yes.
It is what causes part of the health disparities that we see in our healthcare system, because nobody touches the patient more than a nurse.
That's right.
So it's the is now I've been able to connect all that I'm doing to leverage this, even in being a founder of the Academy of Diversity Leaders in Nursing that we just formed. Um, we had that inaugural induction class at the last conference for the National Black Nurses Association. Um, and that's important work because we're going
Yeah.
to leverage this anti DEI, anti inclusion work that other people are doing, because we need to define exactly what we're doing in nursing around this, because it's better for our patients, it's better for our country, and it's going to be better for those that we can sort of stand in that gap to make sure that that next generation doesn't have to deal with some of the things that we've had to deal with, or if they do deal with it, they have a better platform to deal with it. So that
Yeah,
was a really
absolutely.
long answer to your
Oh, but
question.
that was like so necessary because until we start doing that or make sure that that is integrated into everything that we do,
Mhm.
we're going to continue to be behind. So I love the work that you're doing. That's absolutely so necessary and so needed. I have a request. So say that I have someone listening because some nurses are still burnt out. So I
Mhm.
got a nurse, they're burnt out. Could be a physician too, burnt out. They
Mhm.
haven't quite recovered from the double pandemic,
Mhm.
but they're just coming, showing up, not really satisfied, not really fulfilled. Is there any advice that you can give to that particular person that possibly is listening and really on the
Yeah.
verge of possibly even quitting?
Yeah. Yeah. One, I understand. I understand how one can get to that point. And we did deal with a double pandemic. We were dealing with COVID, and we were dealing with America's awareness that racism existed. Um, um, and I don't think people realize that. But what I would say to my colleagues that are at that point, you know, sometimes you do need to step away, and maybe you do step away. So I don't ever say to people, just bear with it. That may not be the best thing for your mental health, your physical
Right.
health. Sometimes you do need to stop, step away, take a little break, take a sabbatical if you can. I remember, and I say sabbatical because I'm an academic, and I remember the first time I actually took a sabbatical, and it was life changing. I was like, I did need a little bit of a break,
Yeah.
uh, some time to restructure, reorganize, do a little bit of self care. As nurses in particular, we're not always very good at self care. You
Right.
know, so our own wellness is something that we need to attune to. So that's the other thing I would say to them. Find what you need to do to take care of you. And it could be so many things. It could be a new hobby. It could be, changing your diet, learning a new exercise routine. It could be spending time with the people you love. Um, but you got to do something for you,
Yes.
because you cannot you can't pour from an empty cup, and a lot of people are pouring from an empty cup. It's like what are you doing in your life to fill your cup? It's
That's
okay to
right.
pour into other people's cups. We do that as nurses all the time. But you got to be mindful about how are you being replenished. And then remember why you chose the profession you chose.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time for a metamorphosis, if you will. So maybe you do a different aspect of nursing or healthcare. There's so many other things in the field that one can do. You know, where I started my career in nursing is not where I am 33 years later. I've grown, I've changed. But and some of it was quite intentional, and some of it was, it had to hit me over the head, with, oh, this is why, this thing in the back of my head, and you mentioned it. You were getting frustrated. You were getting, something. You knew something had to change, and I felt that way as well. I had been at one place for a decade, and you get comfortable,
Right.
but the universe did something that made me had to make me up and move.
Yeah.
Uh, I took a job in another state. I moved from New York to Florida, from Florida to California, from California back to New York. Uh, uh, uh,
Wow.
from New York City back up to upstate New York, and now I'm here in Central Pennsylvania at Penn State. So you know, you got sometimes you have to embrace change because it's one of the constants in life.
Yes.
There are very few absolutes in life. Change is one of them.
Yeah, you know
So
what? You
so
you
I hope
hit
that
some.
makes sense.
It does. You know what you really did, like when you talked about stopping, because that was my challenge. Because we're so driven a lot of times and achieving, and just I was a nurse leader, so it was like a constant grind. There was no room to stop. And
Mm-hmm.
so you just work through the frustration, you work through the irritation, you keep doing it and doing it until your soul finally like grabs you in the collar and say, look, you need to stop. And so I took almost a month off. Never ever had done that in my career. I was always there and always doing that, barely taking vacations. I know better, but I just wasn't doing what I knew to do. And I paused, and I'm telling you, it was like literally life changing. And that is
Mm-hmm.
when I found that quote that says, "You don't die when your heart stops beating, you die when your heartbeats have no meaning." And so I recognized I had lost the meaning
Yeah.
because I had gotten comfortable in
Yeah.
doing what I was doing. So I mean, that totally resonates with you. But when that happened, when the pause happened, when I came back, I was not the same person. I
Mm-mm.
knew exactly that I was going to early retire. I knew exactly that there was something else that was calling me, that I was finally going to listen to the whisper of my heart and to plunge fully into what I was seeing. And then I had my spiritual coach. He
Mm-hmm.
said, Charlene, you keep hanging around the swimming pool, and really God is calling you to the ocean, and He wants the ocean to pour back into the pool. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. I hit my head long enough. I'm going
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
what I'm supposed to do. And so I'm so grateful for people like you that encourages you to, you do need to stop, reassess. And you have demonstrated beautifully, Dr. Fields, how there's so many different areas
Mm-hmm.
that you can go into in nursing. Like one thing that is kind of interesting to me right now is academia. Never really
Yes.
considered it
Yes.
before,
Yes.
but since I've been retired, I'm like, that sounds. I
I,
think
you know what? I was getting ready to say that to you because think about what you've done with the totality of your career. You would make a fabulous educator. As nurses, we're natural educators. We teach all the time as nurses.
right,
But the only thing I say to people is who are really interested is you got to learn about how to teach. So there is a whole educational pedagogy. There is some science behind it, but one of the things that we're missing in diversifying the profession, making space, is we don't have enough teachers in nursing schools.
right,
Nurses like you that have had really successful careers, um, you know, um, should consider definitely coming into the classroom. I know plenty of programs that would love to have someone with your experience.
Yeah, I'm definitely considering it because on my quiet time,
Hmm.
and I just gotta share this one thing that I recognize because I'm being enlightened by so much because I'm like literally pausing, and nothing else like over my head. You know what I mean? So that solitude and that quietness
Hmm.
has uncovered so much for me. Like for instance, before I left, I was writing books, creating content and things like that because it's going to be part of my business that I started.
Hmm.
But when July came, when I was like, okay, finally, I can get back into my stuff. Do you know I still felt like I was like in prison and I couldn't move forward? And so I had to like make myself pause again because this busyness, grinding thought was in my mind trying to make me create busyness so
Hmm.
that I can't pause and really hear what my heart was saying. So it was just like really, really fascinating. So I really didn't feel a sense of freedom and liberty until like the next month. And
Uh-huh.
that's when I was able to like it was almost like I had to peel away the layers of trauma and the layers of things that I had dealt with throughout my
Hmm.
time that I was in leadership, and to really just like get rid of it because when you're busy, you don't know it's there. Because I'm
Hmm.
extremely positive, I'm very loving, and I'm just
Hmm.
throwing love all over the place. But when I had a chance to pause, I had to throw that love back at myself,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
contend with myself,
Yeah.
and it was an amazing, absolutely painful but beautiful journey all at
Yeah.
the same time.
But but again, there are so many. Think about the the reiteration of nursing that's going on with the proliferation of the doctor of nursing practice degree. A lot of those programs are now they're DNP programs in leadership, in nurse management. As a nurse leader, I think you still have a lot to offer in that arena. And and the beauty about academia, you can do it part time. You can do it.
Right.
You do it as an adjunct. You know, you can do it on your terms, which
Yeah.
is really what I want to say.
Yeah, well, I am excited and I will definitely explore. So, Dr. Fields, I know I'm not going to hold you too much longer, but I have to find out. First, I'd like to ask all of my guests, give me three wisdom gems for the times that we're living in. But before you give us your three wisdom gems, what do you see for the future for nursing?
So as I sit here at this time with with the responsibilities that have been given to me, um, I can't I can't not be hopeful. You know, uh, the future of the profession is going to be what we actually make it. And why I say that is there are so many new things. We don't know what the true impact of AI is going to be on nursing profession. But
Yes.
I'm telling you, it's working in the background already. you
Yes.
know uh, so we got to embrace that change that's coming. uh, we're dealing with some policy issues. The upcoming election is
Yeah.
monumental, for what we're going to do in healthcare. um, you know Eventually I do hope we get to a single payer system, because at the system currently is that nursing works within, because nursing is a part of the system. But the system is currently inherently um, unfair,
Right.
structured in a way that we still see a great deal of inequities. um, but nursing is part of the solution,
Yes.
because again, as the largest segment of the healthcare workforce, the most trusted, the people who touch the individuals in the system more than anyone, we have to leverage our power as Black nurses. Um, we know that in the communities and where we live, learn, work, die, and play, we have so much influence because the community trusts us. And that's a huge responsibility. Um, so, again, going back to everything that I hope I'm able to do to help move the needle, we got to stop thinking about uh, coming into nursing, as nursing admissions as a pie. And if I give you more pieces or more slices, there's less for others. No,
Right.
we got to think a little differently. We got to create bigger pies, different pies,
Yes.
because everybody who wants to be a nurse should be able to have a pathway to the profession, and that's not the case. There's still too much gatekeeping going on.
Well, that is pretty amazing. So I'm excited about that and hopeful as well. So let's hear from Dr. Fields. Dr. Fields, top three wisdom gems.
I I haven't thought about that, so let me do a quick moment here.
You're loaded with
I
wisdom, so I'm not
well,
concerned.
well, I do believe that uh, if your dreams and your aspirations do not scare you a little bit,
Mm,
you're you're not doing, you're not fulfilling your true destiny.
wow.
Um, that I do believe. You have to find your purpose in life. That's what drives you. You know, once you find your true purpose, your true calling, it's not work. It just isn't.
Right.
And if you are not totally understanding your connection to the universe, in the fact that life itself is time limited, you know, you must step out and do the things that you really want to do. Because at the end of your life, if all you have are regrets,
Mm,
then you didn't fulfill your destiny.
wow.
Um, I don't know if that was three.
That
Uh,
was three, and that was loaded. That can be like another hour. That was absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for those. So, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience, like about you, any business ventures, anything that
well,
how people can connect with you?
I tell people all the time I hide in public. If you Google my name, all kinds of things come up.
Yes.
The work, my university page, and so I'm very easy to find. Uh, uh, um, I really am doing a lot. I'm very committed to the work that we're doing with the National Black Nursing Association. Uh, you know, it is such a positive vehicle for change,
Yes.
um, and really looking towards that next generation, as well as preserving our history and telling our stories. You know, uh, if, like yourself, there are people out there who have not yet discovered the National Black Nursing Association, I invite you to come take a look at us. Go to our brand new website that launched next week at last week at nbna.org. You can find all the information. You can see our 100 plus chapters across 34 states. Um, Join us. Come help us do the work that we're doing, because while we are national organization and we organize nationally, we implement the work that we do locally, and you've seen that local work
Yes.
in the CCBNA chapter in your area.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal work that
Yeah,
chapter
just
is doing.
phenomenal. This I'll have to share this. It was the first time I went to Cut to the Chase, and
Yes.
it was what was really amazing for me was I'm a heart math certified trainer, And so I help people to build resilience. So while we were
Mhm.
there and, people were sharing in that space, I was able to do a breathing technique with them and
Mhm.
they absolutely loved it. So I like that I can bring all of my gifts, all of my talents, and use it on those that really need it. So I really applaud the work and I'm so glad to be a part now. And I'm definitely going to get more involved because I have more time on my hands now with
Yes.
Sharu is just telling me, you need to check out the national too. There's so much to do. I was like, okay, yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
We would love to have you.
yes, I will definitely
So
be in touch. So I will leave you to give us one more piece of advice. And then first, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to bless us with your presence. Like your journey is absolutely inspiring, amazing. You like totally got all kind of stuff stirred up in me. And so thank you for
well,
being who
one
you are.
yeah. Well, thank you for your platform. These types of platforms are very important. Thank you for the opportunity just to have a conversation. I hope something that I've said today has resonated with someone out there.
Yes.
Um, you know, Even if it's that young man of color who wants to pursue a nursing career and people are making fun of him because men of color are not supposed to be nurses. Don't believe it. Follow your heart, follow your passion.
Yes.
The very last thing I will say is, we're living in some very trying times. A little bit of grace and mercy goes a long way.
Yeah.
So practice radical grace, intentional mercy,
Hmm.
just with a level of humanity, um, because that's how we'll get through a lot of this.
I want to thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of When the Moment Chooses You. I'm your host, Coach Charlene, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Each journey we've shared today is a reminder that when the moment chooses you, the possibilities are endless.